Legendary icon, Hall of Famer.
Hello, you're watching The Luna Show.
Welcome to The Luna Show. Welcome to The Luna Show. Legendary Luna, 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 The Luna Show. Luna, Luna, Luna. Welcome to The Luna Show.
Of course, you're listening to the beat.
So what's gonna happen tonight?
Well, tonight, it's an old way class. Well, I call it pop dip and spin. We're sort of trying to get away from that whole term, old way. Right, and go back to pop dip and spin. So we're going to talk about pop dip and spin. I think the first thing I want to focus on is sort of like the history of pop dip and spin and how it started and stuff like that. And sort of how it evolved, because it did sort of change from the 80s to the 90s. And in fact, that's where that old way term came from. And then throughout the 90s and even in the 2000s, the style or even the art form sort of started changing, right? So that's all about the evolution. After the history, then we're going to talk about like a little introductory session. You know what I mean? I'm going to sort of introduce myself and my contribution to the ballroom community and to Old Way, to sort of allow the members or the people who come here for the Old Way class to do the same. And then I guess after that, I'm trying to think. I put together a whole outline. After that, I'm going to do a demonstration with all the different elements of pop, dip, and spin. And then after that, I'm just going to let the people vote, right? Vote, battle, and then in the end, the last portion of the class, we're going to sort of have like a Q&A, you know what I mean, and with some concerns, and even some suggestions, if some of you guys got some suggestions. Oh, and one important thing, stretch too. We're going to do that first. So I think it's very important that
Stretching is important.
Right, so that's going to be the very first thing.
You want to hurt your muscles.
Right, so yeah.
You want to be able to vote till you're 50.
Right. And so, again, I think the most important thing is just that we're going to have a good time. Right?
Okay. Well, that's great. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thanks for allowing me this opportunity, too.
Of course.
Thank you.
We're trying to keep the traditions alive, because otherwise something like pop, dip, and spin will disappear out of the ball scene, really, if you let it die off.
Right.
So it's important to teach what we,
Right, and I think it's like our obligation to sort of make sure that don't happen. Right.
Why is stretching important before you vote?
Because you don't want to hurt nothing. You don't want to pull nothing, right? You want to hurt yourself. And when you be rushing to the emergency room. Yeah, so it's very important. Very important. I remember I saw Vogue when I first came out. Like this was years ago, like in the mid '80s. It was in the fall of '86 to be exact. And a friend of mine took me to a club. I didn't even know that we were going to that type of club, right? And I remember, like about maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, there was this like huge circle, and on the dance floor, in the middle of the dance floor. And I'm looking, I'm like wondering why did they just form this huge circle? Right, so, and again, this was my very first time in the club. So I'm going over there to sort of look and see what's going on, and I see these guys doing this dance that sort of reminded me of breakdancing at that time. Because breakdancing in the 80s was really popular. So that's the first thing that came to mind. I was like, this looks like breakdancing, but breakdancing with a little twist to it, right? But just like there's a lot of similarities, but then at the same time there was some different things as well. But I was just like captivated, right? And I think that the 2 guys who were voguing was because I didn't know who they were at that time. It was Ronald LeMay, and I think it was Jerome Pendarvis. It was either Jerome Pendarvis or Jason Oakless. And those were like 2 well-known, those were 3 well-known Vogue voguers at that time. So, yeah, I just remember like wanting to come back to the club like every week just to see that, right? And then I think like maybe like less than a year later, I started like going home myself and just looking in the mirror and just doing certain things, right? Trying to get it. And then I met, like shortly after that, I met Jamal Milan, who we just mentioned. I met Jared Princess. And then that's when I started looking at their styles as well. And we talked about different styles. And like I would see something different in everybody. And that's, at that point, this was like around like 80, 87, 88. That's when I really like started like learning myself. And I would like watch people and I would go home and sort of try to do what they did, but then also like develop my own style. Like get down to basics, right? If that makes any sense. And then I would develop my own style. So that's sort of how it started for me. And then in 1989 is when I went to my first ball, which was in New Jersey. Right, I went to my first ball. And I wasn't in the house at that time. I was trying to get in the house of Adonis, but they told me in order to get in the house, I had to walk a ball and I had to win. Right, so I went to the house of Adonis. I went to that ball. I walked. I got chopped too. That first time I walked, I did. And eventually, I ended up getting into the house of Adonis, and then I stayed there for a little bit. And I went into the house of Christian, and then from the house of Christian and Princess sort of merged into one house. We were like sister houses, and that's when I became Tim Princess. Like at that point, I was like maybe like 91, 92 or something like that. So that's sort of like my ballroom history. And that's when I was first introduced to Old Way. And ever since then, I've just been walking that category. I started walking Old Way, then facial performance, but particularly mainly Old Way. That's what I like to do. Yeah. So that's sort of my introduction, and I've been in the ballroom scene ever since. Right? And like now, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Now I sort of want to approach the ballroom scene from a sort of different perspective, right? Like doing stuff like this, like teaching classes, right? So that's basically it. Right. So so then in the 80s, right, they were obviously voguing, right? That's when Old Way was really popular in the 80s. And like I was telling you guys earlier, like I came around in '86, and that's when I saw voguing. And then when I got into the ballroom scene around '89, right after I got into the ballroom scene, because it was still called Old Way, it was still called Performance and Pop Dip and Spin. And then the style sort of started changing, right? We could sort of call that like evolution, right? It was evolving a little bit. But you had people like, and then Willie Ninja was doing a lot of stretch at that time, Jose Extrava. But then you had people who started doing like more stretch, right? So then what the ballroom scene started recognizing was that maybe those who had all this crazy stretch it would not be fair to sort of allow them to battle against the ones who didn't have stretch. So then that's when they came up with this, okay, well we'll call this then the old way, and then we'll call this the new way. Right. The new way are the kids who's using all that stretch and the clicks and all that stuff. Right. So then that's how those two terms came about. Right. And this was like from the 80s to the 90s. So then throughout the 90s it was called the old way. Up until this day a lot of people still call it the old way. But one thing that I try to sort of distinguish or focus on is that Old Way is just a term, right? Old Way doesn't really mean that this is what the art form is, right? It's just a term that they use to separate the two different styles, right? Because I remember hearing somebody recently say, either you're going to do Old Way or you're going to do Pop Dip and Spin. But technically, Old Way and Pop Dip and Spin is the same thing. Performance, Pop Dip and Spin, and Old Way is the same thing. It's just all a matter of terminology that they use a different term, right? Now, if you ask me, are there different styles of Pop Dip and Spin? Yes, there is. There's a classic style, and then there's a more acrobatic style. And going back to what I said about voguing sort of changing from the 80s to the 90s, they started doing a lot more stretch, but then there was also like some more acrobatic stunts that was also started being included into the performance as well. Like if you look at Jamal, if you look at, you guys might not remember, but if you see video clips, Lamar Ebony, people like that, or even Muhammad, you can see all the acrobatic stuff, right? So then that's when the style started changing a little bit, and then that's where you got the classic and you got the acrobatic style. but never do you have the old way and then you have pop, dip, and spin. No, it's all one performance. It's just, again, it's just about terminology, right? And they were interchangeably used, because in the beginning it was pop, dip, and spin, or either performance. And they meant the same thing. That whole terminology, like that whole term old way, was just given to the dance style for that particular reason. Just to separate the two styles so that people could have a fair chance at performing when they came out and looked old. Right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that you had to Vogue with this, with this old technique. You know what I'm saying? Like just this slow, because I've heard people say stuff like that. Huh?
I said with a cane.
Right. Like you have to Vogue using this old technique, because I've really heard people say that. And you know what I'm saying? That differs from pop, dip, and spin. That's not true. Now that I can attest because I was there then. You know what I'm saying? I was there then. But are there different styles in pop, dip, and spin? Yeah, you got the classic, like style and grace, like people like Fuquan, somebody like that. That to me is classic, right? The acrobatic side would be like, again, like I said, Jamal and Lamar Ebony or Chucky Chanel, somebody like that, right? So yeah. And so now here we have it, like 2013, right? And we're sort of trying to move away from that old way term and sort of bring back the pop, dip, and spin, right? And then we're also sort of trying to make the category more relevant, because at the ball that they just had, only one person ball. Right? All right, the first thing I want to show you guys is the technique or the element called locking, right? And I'm gonna need like a volunteer for this one. Now, before I start, one thing that's so important about locking is that it has to be done. It has to be clean, right? Because it's a technique. It really has to be clean. I mean, I've seen people lock where it just looks so aggressive and to the point where it's like physical.
Like when Sullivan locked Stanley at Loma and almost broke his damn neck.
It's almost like two people are fighting, right? And you definitely don't want that to happen. You don't want to do voguing. I mean, the most important thing is you want to have fun, so you don't want to fight. So that's why it's important that when you lock, you clean. This way, if you do it and you're clean about it, then you don't have to worry about hitting the other person inappropriately, right? So this is what I'm gonna show you. So sort of bend down. Let's see here. Just bend back a little bit.
Like into this or this?
You can go back a little bit more. So I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna do it first with the music, and then I'm gonna stop the music and show you how. And it's really not that hard. So, and of course, it's best to lock your component when y'all close to each other, close in proximity, because you can't lock anybody if you're way back here. So he's like this, and I'm like this, right? This is usually done spontaneously, right? But you don't know, and I'll probably do something like this, right? If you can see, I'm really not touching it. It might look like I'm touching it, but I'm not, right? And I can probably do something like this. I'm still not touching it. But if he tries to move, he can't really go too far. I can do something like that, right? So that's basically it, like something like this. Or, let me show you one more thing. Wait, go ahead. Or like if you, no, go get, yeah, back down. Okay. Sort of.
Like into deep?
No, go ahead. You can do that. You can do that. It was something that I had just did recently. I was battling somebody, and I just went like, I don't want to hit you in the face. Right? So again, he can't really go too far. So, yeah, so I think, again, the important thing is to be clean about it, right? And make sure your component is close to you to sort of give you the opportunity to sort of lock. Because of course you can't lock nobody if you're miles away from Alright. So moving right along. Now, the other element is lines and precision, as you called it. One thing for me that's important is anything you do on this side, you have to do on that side. So it has to be symmetrical, right? I like symmetry. Other people might not vote like that, but that's what I like. And I think, I don't know why I'm out of breath. Right, so what I do on the left, I'm going to do on the right. So symmetry, precision is very important. And I have this stickler with fingers. Like when I was in Russia, a lot of people were voguing like this. You know what I mean? Doing this stuff. Right? And they was asking me like, is that a part of, oh, I'm like, I've seen people vogue like that, like Albernian. But for me, this is just something that I like. You know what I'm saying? So this is like a stickler for me. So if you're going to be in my class, and you're gonna be like this, not like that. Right? So back to the symmetry and the precision, straight lines, the fingers together, right? Let me give you a little demonstration. Just like anything you do, that's the line, that's the precision. I'm gonna show you how to do popping. Because I was like right there, so this would be considered popping, right? The popping is just like, it's like sharp moves, right? It's like sharp, what's the other word I'm looking for? Instead of doing the extension, right? You sort of cut it short, right? And you put the emphasis on your hand.
Take a little break if you got what it takes to make it feel like this has got to be real.
Right? So that's popping. Of course, you don't necessarily have to do popping like this. You can be popping anywhere, like where you're voguing.
Whatever you do, let's take a little break. It's just me and you. Totally awesome.
All right, so the next element is what we call neck breakers, right? And the neck breakers is when you see a person, it looks like they're on the top of their head, but they're not. They're sort of like on the side, right? So I'm going to demonstrate. And when you do neck breakers, it's really important that you go into it right, because you don't want to hurt yourself. And the best way to go into a neck breaker is, this is what I do, and I sort of call this like a walkover. So you go like this. And if you take a look, I'm on the side of my head. Right? So I'm on the side of my head. Most of my weight is like right here. Right? So I think it's important that we try to do this right now. Each one of us, try it right now. Let's start with, what's your name again? Let me give you the clue. Huh?
On my head.
No, remember, you're not on your head. You're not on your head, you're on the side, right?
Hot?
Yeah, what?
It's hot, darling.
So try, let's see. I'm gonna do it for you, see if you can probably try and get it. And I don't expect you guys to get this in a day, like you got this. So,
But don't break your necks.
Now look at my head and my arm. These are like two important things. Right. So it's like you
Putting all the weight on this side, right? You're putting all the weight on your hand right here.
Right. The elbow is sort of touching the abdominal area, right? And you're bending it.
You do that.
You're bending the elbow and it's like it's touching the abdominal area, and you're not on top of your head. You're on like the side of your face. You guys can try it. Huh?
That's like it hurt.
You good guys.
Yes.
That's right.
Oh no. What I'm always like.
And I used to do it, now I do it. I do it.
You got it. You got it. Put your elbow near your right here.
Near your abdominal area, like your stomach. There you go. No, you got it.
Yeah, bro. Control. You gotta control.
Leg straight.
Right, just gotta practice. And just remember the way you go into it too helps a lot because you gotta balance yourself. And you sort of gotta give yourself that what do you call it? Give yourself that push. Right, and the way you do that, here you go. Okay, that's good. So
She does yoga.
For 2 weeks
Not
only.
bad.
2 weeks only.
okay.
But
so,
that helps.
So since we're doing dips, let's sort of talk about that. Now one thing that's so important, and I said this when I was in Russia, whenever you do a dip, whenever your head hit that floor, it's a dip. And when your head hit that floor, the top of your head needs to be touching the floor, right? The top of your head needs to touch the floor. And that's a dip. Let me just give you some examples. I don't need music for that.
Boom, 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 boom.
One thing. See, my head is on the floor.
I always feel like somebody's gonna kick my head when I do that.
My head is looking at Luna,
Hi.
right?
Yeah, hi.
I'm looking at somebody. You get the message, right? The idea? It's like the top of your head has to touch.
Also, for pop dip and spin, it always has to touch.
Yeah, according to me.
A lot of people don't do that though.
It's not a tip.
When
Not,
Vogue Femme started it,
Yeah.
your head supposed to have hit the, it was the same, because I guess it's just kind of like took parts of Owe, but now nobody does it.
right, and I think, and when you do that, it makes it so much more effective. And I think what's so important, I'm going to talk about that in a second, what's so important when you voguing, you have to sort of think about being in a photo shoot. Like if you were in a photo shoot taking pictures and the photographer's taking pictures, you're going to constantly pose, right? And you want the best poses, of course. So it's just like voguing. Like you want the best poses when you vogue. So when you do a dip, you want that dip to look good, clean, and effective. And the best way to do a dip, to make it look effective, in my opinion, is that the top of your head has to touch the floor, right? Yeah. So, what other elements? Hold up. Let me check that. Okay. So, there's also duck walk too. And the duck walk is very similar to the duck walk in any other performance. It's very similar to the duck walk in any other performance.
Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Ooh, I love it. Don't you love it? Don't you love it? Ooh, I love it. Love it when you shake it. Hate it when you take it. Love it when you want to take a love break. Ow! Love it when you shake it. Hate it when you take it. Love it when you want to take a love break. Okay, we're going to keep doing this till we get tired, for sure. Ooh, I love it. I love it.
Spin.
We got a good rhythm going and the time is right. We're gonna keep it running by candlelight. We're going up and down and round and round. We ain't gonna stop till we got this town. Don't stop. Keep it coming, y'all. Don't stop. Just keep it coming. We're gonna keep doing it till we get it right. We're gonna keep doing it if it takes all night. Don't stop. All night. No, no, no. Don't stop.
I gave you like
Don't you love it?
three elements.
Ooh, I love it. Don't you love it?
Duck walk, cat walk,
Oh, I
and
love it. Love it when you shake it. Hate it when you take it. Love it when you wanna take a love break. Ooh, love it when you shake it. Hate it when
So, Yeah, that was it in terms of these are just the basics, right? These are just the basics, so I don't expect y'all to look out of here and know how to be ready to battle somebody like yourself.
What's style and grace though?
Oh, I'm glad you said that because I didn't even get to that. And I got that on my list. The style and grace is, if you look at Derek Icon,
Yeah, cause I would never say he would see me if I would know. I would say he style and grace.
I think he's a mixture though. It's a mixture because when you talk about the classic, like I said before, the classic is style and grace. So if you look at Derek Icon, people like him, Buquan, I'm trying to think who else gives you style and grace. That's that style and grace classic, and the style and grace is basically like, you know what I'm saying, how you give this, and you know what I'm saying, and you fucking like, you know what I'm saying?
Almost, yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's smooth. More smooth.
Right, yeah.
So, I got you.
Like a seductive type of performance. Yeah, that's what style and grace is.
Okay.
That's what it, so yeah, I was saying earlier, like when you voguing, just think of yourself being in a photo shoot, just taking pictures, and it's also important to like tell a story, right? Just make sure like everything is cohesive. Like all the stuff that I showed you, like if you're gonna do a dip, and then you get up, and you want to do like some like a crawl or a spin, just make sure that it's all put together, right? And I think with any type of vogue, I don't know why I'm so out of breath. It's hot in here. Like with any type of vogue, you telling a story, and it has to be cohesive. It has to connect. Just like if you was writing like an essay or something, you have different paragraphs in an essay. Every paragraph has to relate to itself, right? You have an introduction, you have a conclusion, but in the body, it all has to connect. That's just like voguing, the same thing.
You
And
have to have when you compete and you cannot compete. Like, kind of a sequence that you follow. Like first you do like first a little bit of arms, then you go like a little bit of maybe floor, or you just do whatever. When you compete.
when you first come out, or when you compete,
Yeah.
that's a really good question. I think it depends on a lot of different things. I think it depends on, number one, who you're battling. The type of ball that you're at, right? I think for me, or where you're at in terms of battle, because this might be the first battle for you. You might have to battle 10 or 15 other people, right?
So depends
I think it's
how
important. For me, I just think it's important to do something when you first come out to grab the attention of the judges, right? You might want to come out in the first 10 seconds. You might want to fall into a fab dip or something, just to grab the judge's attention. And that could, you mean if you're battling, right? But not for your 10s, right?
Yeah.
If you're battling,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
because
If you battle, right.
yeah, I think it depends on a lot of different things. But in the very beginning, I think what I focus on is sort of like grabbing the judge's attention. I need to do something
Something.
in
Okay.
within 10 seconds to grab their attention. I mean, if you got some really overhands, then you didn't do that, right? If your
But
hands
not
are just
intense.
deadly.
If you do tens, if you would approach it differently, right?
If you
You're
do
not
what?
gonna come out with all the tens.
Oh, 10? What do you mean? Come out with your
Yeah,
10s?
when you just come out the first.
For your times, you should do a mini thing of your whole repertoire, right?
Yeah.
Like everything that you're good at, you do it all.
Because that's right. That's your first introduction to the.
You can win a ball off of it, of how good your tens are.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's your first introduction to the category. So you want to sort of give them.
But in any type of battle, I think you should always be spontaneous. I don't think you should ever follow a routine because if someone learns you, honestly, that's how I started winning runway because the top people, I learned their routine. They had a routine. They had a certain way they walk, a certain their first pivot, and I started paying attention. So I was like, I watch this bitch gonna do this pivot to the left, and I stood right there, and she couldn't do her, and fucked her mind up because she in her mind it was like, oh my god, what I do next? So I think being spontaneous is what wins a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because you might be planning on doing something, then somebody come and lock you, and you be stuck like, okay, what I do now?
Because that's so true. He's right. Because one person who I think is so spontaneous when it comes to this category is Selvin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
When
yeah.
Selvin will pull something out of the
Uh-huh.
bag, and you would
Gag.
be gagging. I can't believe he just did that. So spontaneity, right? That's important too, right? But to answer your question, when you go out for your 10s, I think you should definitely put your best foot forward. And when you're battling, I think I would say, yeah, because you got to grab the judge's attention. That's what you want to do, right? You want to battle, but at the same time, you want to grab the judge's attention. You want to grab the audience attention to somebody. Yeah, back to this. And another thing, too, like before we start voguing, is it's also important to, like, catch the beats when you voguing. Right? I think in any style of vogue, right, you want to catch the beats. Now, in certain songs, right, and in certain songs, like, there's those important beats, and then there's so, I want to say, not so important beats, right? So, do we focus on the very important ones? I would say so, right? There's certain, like, the real important crashes or whatever you call them, right? So it's important to, like, really catch the beats, and then you're not going to catch every beat in a song. That's just impossible, unless you're just that fab vocal, right? You just
Like
you know
Mika.
what I'm saying?
Unless you're Mika.
Okay.
Right? So catching beats, right? So that's it. So I guess now it's time to sort of vogue, right? We got what, 4, 5, 6 people? 5 people?
Oh,
whatever.
baby, I'm old.
So come on, clean up, y'all. Let's give yourselves some space. Getting it straight, symmetric, precision. And of course, you're listening to the beat.
That's another thing that's hard too, because like with Vogue Film, and you learn the Vogue Film, and I call it the in beats, the out beats. With Vogue Film, we like focus on the out beats, like smash, and then we're always like the in beats. So it's kind of it's different when they are.
So that's what I'm saying. Right now, I'm trying to look. Just
give us- And I'll just watch you start doing that.
That's our category.
Go ahead, Montez. We're doing it together.
everybody?
Yeah. Right. Don't worry about how you're gonna look, just do it. Just focus on, like, the symmetry in the line.
Now burn your hand.
What is this? That?
Okay. That looks like you ready to battle.
So these bitches is amateurs.
You gotta put your leg under like this.
Come on, Dominic.
It's not like a bow pin. It's an O right there. Yeah.
What was that? What?
Because I'm so used to, both things. So on the side, I'm trying to go down and it's just not working. It's
Now remember, just listen to the beat. Right?
I can only do over when everything's mine.
Another thing with lines, right, and your precision, your feet, of course, is very important. Like exactly what he's doing, right? It's like if the feet is in the feet.
you can do
That's the thing, because now I'm thinking about it. Like, instead of, like, how am I getting into the dip doing, yeah, compared to, like, just a regular.
A dip like that, like you just did? Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you definitely won't do it like
you
that.
can't do that.
I mean, if I could just give you, like, an example, it would sort of be just like this, right? All the lines, right? And eventually you're bending down with your legs.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, okay.
Right.
Now I get it.
He's right, you sort of break it down. So it's not like just one
Yeah.
move, right, and you're in a dip.
It's all about break.
Right. That type of dip. Unless like I showed you before, unless you're gonna spin.
Spin dip.
Right.
How you do the spin one for pop dip and spin?
Huh?
How do you do a spin one?
Okay, I'll show them again, won't I? The spin, I think, is a lot similar to Vogue Fam. Like I said before, a lot of it is sort of similar, right? The old way spin that I do is, I sort of like to, what do you call it? Right, prep myself. Do it, but I do it like in a way where I'm still holding. Okay. And it's a spin, but it's probably not as fast as Vogue Fam. Right. And then there's the other spin that I do is it's like a half cartwheel into a spin. Like this.
Oh, that's just Speedy Gonzalez.
Which would be sort of difficult. I always try to teach that, but it's always hard.
It's like one whole movement.
Right. Right, then you have to bend, just keep going when you spin.
Okay.
The old way. Take the old way. The old way. Eat the old way. Earn the old way. Turn the old way. Yes, the old way. Who the old way? Don't know. Never can ever come to the old way.
that I want to focus on. The last time I came out when we did the Soul Chain line, is I did a lot of floor performance. I don't think we talked about that in the beginning. We talked about the different elements. So floor performance is a very important element always, right? Because it's like The same thing like you do in the air, like it's floor performance too that you do on the floor, right? Like stuff like this, like that, right? All that is important too, because you're posing on the floor. Again, like I said before, as long as it's all cohesive, right? It's all together. You know what I'm saying? As long as you, another word I heard somebody use.
Blend?
Huh?
Blended together?
Blended, right, but there's another word, combination, right? I've heard somebody use that before. As long as you, like, it's combinations that you use, so you're putting it all together. But yeah, floor performance is very important. And there was another dip that I seen. Who did? I think you did. The dip that you had did when you went like this.
Oh, it went over? Yeah.
Right. So that's another example of doing a dip and making sure your head is on the bottom, right? And again, that makes it look effective.
Category back in the day, why is it not a high category now?
It evolved in a Vogue fam. It was doing 360 dips.
Yeah, there's a lot of Vogue fam's like the hottest category now, I think.
Look like Runners for the Twins. Vogue Femme not even the hottest category no more. Runners for the Twins.
Nah, I'm joking.
And I think it's a question. I think one of the reasons why it's not as relevant is because, like I spoke earlier about that whole term old way. When people, especially people who's just coming out in the ballroom scene now, and they see old way, you know what I'm saying? Immediately they're gonna think.
Mind you,
Bro,
I
my house
just came
can't
out.
walk that. I don't want to walk that category.
Like I literally just came out, and then there's like old way versus new way. I'm like, okay, so
What? You see,
I was like, what is
right.
going on? I don't want to learn this.
And it's not glamorized. We don't glamorize it.
Yeah, like
That's
even
right.
you could just say
That's
you could
right.
sense it by the way the comments is. Oh wait, new way, let's go.
Oh, wait, 10, 9, 8,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5,
5,
4, 3, 2,
It'd be the last category or the first category.
So that's why we Jamal and I and a couple of others is like really trying to change the way they the term that they use now at balls and on category sheets. We don't want it to be called old. We want it to be called popular swim.
And then what they call for, like, you're like, oh, child,
Just bring
Adidas
it.
tracksuit, just bring it. Black gloves, white gloves.
And then
There's
what
no
make it
excitement. Like,
weird,
it'll make you wanna.
what make it weird as well is like the
Well, you can't do always with a bizarre outfit on.
No, but you can call for something other than.
Bringing in something
I think we
cunty.
do that at the latest, but we do good.
But always not cunty in heels. I don't see it like
Bring
that.
old way in a 6.
But everywhere else, it's always the same. Black or white gloves.
I think old way, in my opinion, you should just bring it. That's it.
I don't.
I like
Because it's about the
Bring it
glitz
as a
and glam.
ninja.
It's
Like, bring it as a
ballroom.
ninja.
Oh, as a ninja, you could do that.
It's
A lot
glitz
of
and
people
glam.
have-
I want to see some excitement.
But the thing about, but let me say this, the thing about old way, like a lot of us who used to walk, or even still now, would bring an effect anyway.
Yeah.
You understand? We'll bring a ninja effect, or we'll bring something, even if the category don't call for it.
That look
Some
bad
light
when you walking
fatigues or
down
something.
and you got a sword in your hand and you maneuvering it.
Oh, I
and
like
you
that.
posing.
I love when Jamal at the POCC ball, when he was the soldier.
Oh yeah.
I like stuff like that. It's exciting because it always gets boring. I'm sorry, in my opinion, it gets boring when you start seeing the same thing. Then jeans, t-shirt, black gloves. It's like.
But I feel like the performance should overshadow like the.
Well, I was about to say that because sometimes I could spend hours watching Old versus watching Vogue Femmes.
Because you're an old girl.
No, I don't think.
No, but it's just the way that
it.
it's just more beautiful. I
It
think.
is. It is. It's
Yeah,
precise. It's clean.
It's more precise. Like it takes a lot of skill to be. It's easier to like move constantly, but it takes a lot of skill to like pop. Like
It does.
And
Like,
all
to get down
all the pop dip and spin people Vogue differently versus Vogue Femme. Pretty much is a everybody's doing the exact same thing the other person did.
Yeah, that's what they got. Like,
From what I
you
see.
you can tell the difference. Like there's an Albertian style. You know, there's a Tim style. There's definitely a Jamal style. You know, like there's a Dewan. There's a Derek style. Like
everybody's
Even
different.
Scooter.
That's
Scooter.
right.
See,
Almost like
not to
Jamal.
me. Scooter don't got his own style yet. I can see remnants
You
of
don't
certain
think
people in Scooter.
What?
Jamal.
I can see people in him. Like, but that's because you can tell who taught him or who he watches.
Yeah.
But then there's like a Selvin style, you know.
So how you feel?
I feel refreshed. It was a privilege to be able to come here and participate in this old weight lesson. Definitely a privilege because how often do you get to get advice from an icon? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm excited to improve my craft and walk a ball.
Good. What about you?
I feel good. I'll definitely come back to another class.
I think we're gonna do it monthly, maybe. What was your experience like?
I enjoyed it. It's all about learning your history. So, how can you perfect your craft if you don't know like where it actually came from? So, I enjoyed it. Had a good time. I got more confident in other things, and I learned more about Owe. So it was good.
Thank you.
Everyone!
So what was your experience like?
It was great. I learned actually a lot of new about history that I was not aware of before, and a lot of elements and difference between old way and pop, din, and spin. Even though I've been for a while learning old way, but I didn't know the difference. Now I do, and I learned a lot of elements like lock and neck break, and I didn't know those are elements kind of. So it was great. Thank you.
What was your experience teaching the young folks?
It was a good experience, very good. And I just want to thank you, like I told you before, I really want to thank you for this opportunity. I think what made this class really good was the fact that we spoke about it earlier in the class, was that we don't see a lot of people work in this category as much, right? So, and I think in terms of, to be able to make it more relevant, we need to have stuff like this, right? Classes and Facebook groups that sort of focus on like inspiring and offering advice for people who want to work the category, the things that we need to sort of make it relevant again. So I say all that to say that this was a great experience. The class was really good. I think they learned, most of them learned something, right?
Do you think there should be a pop, dip, and spin for virgins at balls?
Yeah, of course. It's a good idea. And another thing I want to say is we're not calling it OA no more. We're calling it pop, dip, and spin.
Right.
Bye.